and we'll get started really soon.
Shout out to all the early birds. Hey,
I know.
early birds.
A lot of friends on here.
I myself sometimes take on the role of late Lisa, so I'm appreciative.
It's also called Kate the Late.
I'm sometimes the late Lisa, so I'm appreciative of all the early Ernies and Ernestines out there. Shout out to y'all.
All right. Well, it always takes me a long time to get through this intro, so let's start on time so we can get to you guys. Welcome. Where's my words? Good afternoon and welcome to Now and There Asks conversation series. I'm Kate Gilbert. I use she, her as my pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Now and There. I will be moderating this conversation. This is our third in an 8-week session of Now and There Asks, where we ask Boston communities, what does your neighborhood need right now? A pretty loaded question. Today's session brings us to Roxbury, and in particular, Nubian Square. We're excited to have Anita Morson-Matra of the Roxbury Cultural District and Roxbury artists Ife Franklin and Chanel Thervil with us here today for an intergenerational conversation. Thank you, ladies. But before we formally begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm standing here today in Boston. And for those of you joining me here from the Boston area, we are on the unceded land of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the Massachusetts people, past, present, and future. And this conversation about the history of Roxbury must acknowledge it was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many indigenous people who occupied this original Shawmut Neck. This program today has been created to offer a supportive and proactive space for artists, cultural producers, leaders, healers, all of you here today in the public in the face of physical distancing and retreat. We aim to bring us all together in an open dialogue about what's happening right now in Boston's neighborhoods, to be better listeners and to encourage action. We'll start, as always, with a 30-minute conversation among the four of us, which will be, I will moderate, and then we'll bring in Mary Liz Murray, who in my screen is at the bottom. Hi, Mary Liz, for 30 minutes of Q&A with all of you here on the call today. We encourage you to use the chat, say hi, snap, let us know what you're thinking as this conversation goes along. But if you do want to voice a question, please use the Q&A at the bottom. And Mary Liz will ask you to either come online or hopefully come online and ask your question live. I think that's all the housekeeping that I need to do. Mary Liz, yes, okay, good. And Katie will be here dropping in some chats along the way. All right, so let's get started with some very quick introductions and then we'll get to the conversation. Anita Morson-Matra has extensive experience in urban planning and public health with an MA from Tufts in Urban and Environmental Policy and Planning. She's held positions at Boston Public Health Commission, Everett Department of Health, Madison Park Development Corporation, Franklin Park Coalition, and is now the management consultant of the newly minted Roxbury Cultural District, which was designated just 3 years ago by the MCC, the Massachusetts Cultural Council. Thanks for being here. And Ife Franklin probably needs no introduction to many people on this call, has worked as a professional artist and community activist for over 30 years. A fellow SMFA, School of Museum of Fine Arts graduate, different times than I was there, studied performance art, video production, ceramics, and the art of Africa. It's also where she met her mentor and master Adiri artist, Mr. Stanley Pinkney. Ife's work is part of the Fitchburg Art Collection. Congratulations. And her new book, The Slave Narrative, yeah, that's worth it. And her new book, The Slave Narrative of Willie May, was released in the spring of 2018. It has since been donated and received by the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Ife. There's a lot of greats here. Last but not least, Chanel Thervil is a Haitian American artist and educator obsessed with all things art, pop, history, and culture. fueled by her lack of satisfaction with a narrow range of representations of people of color on both sides of the canvas. And I really appreciate that, Chanel. Chanel decided to pursue a career in art. Her love for talking about art, doing research, and dragging loved ones to museums that they would never walk into otherwise led her to complete a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting at Pace University and a master's degree in art education at the Mass College of Art and Design. And I had the pleasure of working with Chanel in 2017 as part of Public Trust. Welcome, Chanel. Thank you. Okay, let's get started, and I'm not going to talk after this. But I would first want to put this on the table. We talked about this in our pre-call. There has been a rise in white-led organizations and institutions wanting to ally with you all, Black artists, Black creatives, Black business leaders. And as one of those institutions, I thank you for even saying yes to this invitation. How are you all managing this sudden demand? And what are you looking for in terms of a good partner who can help you grow your art practice or your vision for a vibrant Roxbury or Nubian Square? And Chanel, if I can start with you as our youngest member here and the hip artist, perhaps you can talk about some of the experiences.
Also hip.
I know. Well, you know. Okay, we're all hip, but you're the young. Yeah.
Yes, it's cool. No worries.
What we can do a poll later. So Chanel, help us kick off this conversation, please, because you have some great insight that you shared with us before.
Yeah, I think for me, I understand the interest in a lot of arts and cultural organizations to want to kind of hop on the bandwagon and want to loudly show off a photograph or a collaboration that they've done with a Black artist in the past or that they might newly be doing now. And it's wonderful that folks are stepping forward with an intention of allyship. And I think people need to be critical and accountable about what they're doing long-term, as opposed to just trying to find a Black artist that'll fit for a collaboration right now because every other organization is thinking about putting the Black people they work with in front of a camera or in front of funders to show their solidarity. Systems of oppression and racism are that, they're systems, right? So the rebuttal or the response or the disruptor to those things also needs to be systematic. So some of those characteristics that align with that systematic disruption of oppression and racism really start with, first and foremost, asking the people that you want to collaborate with what they need, one. So shout out to this talk series as like one model for doing that. And outside of asking the people that you want to collaborate with what they need, be prepared to provide them with money and a resource that supports executing what it is they say they need to do or what you hope to do together. We live in a capitalist society. Everyone needs money, period. We know that there's a long history of Black people being disenfranchised and barred from resources that they need to thrive and survive. Black artists are a part of that. We too have bills to pay, even if the work that we're doing is fueled by a passion that goes in different directions. So not only is it about polling the people that you're looking to support to ask them what they need, and then providing money and the resource that supports getting them to what they need. It's also about ensuring that you are, if you're not an organization who has a history of working with Black artists or Black communities, and you want to start that work, you need to also start looking internally and thinking about the differences you want to make in terms of your systems and how you execute the things that you do. And the big reason for that is the hope ultimately is that this partnership that you're making with Black artists or Black institutions is a long-term one. It's about cultivating a relationship, and that takes more than a one-off to do that. And that also means that that's an investment that you're going to have to be consistent about. Allyship is not always sexy. Allyship is not always gonna be a great photo op or like a wonderful thing you can write to your grant funders about in a one-page write-up. Like there's consistent work that has to happen there. And I think that If you are an organization or an individual who's looking to partner with a Black artist, you need to be prepared to do the work of ensuring that you have money and resources to connect those artists to, listening and believing in what they say they actually need. And sometimes that might mean getting out of their way so that they can get to those things or achieve those goals. And again, like really being clear that this isn't just a one-off thing, this is a consistent relationship that's being cultivated. And I would also say that if you're an arts organization or entity that doesn't feel like they know how to do that work, look around at organizations who are who have been forging that path for years. So one organization that I highly recommend is the Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston. I've been a recipient of their Creative Entrepreneur Fellowship. They have a legacy. That fellowship's been around for 6 years, and it's specifically catered to supporting artists of color and primarily Black artists based in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. Through that fellowship, I've been not only given a stipend for my time, but also I've been able to have access to these free career coaching and workshops with experts whose time costs money that I as an individual wouldn't necessarily be able to seek out with my limited resources on my own. And in addition to being someone who's now at the end of that fellowship, they've said over and over again that like, we're still here, even though you're no longer a fellow, now you've graduated from our program, you are essentially for as long as we're around, you'll still have access to our legal services through the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts tentacle of their programs. I can always talk to someone on staff about things that I may need support with or referrals for things. And that is the kind of long-term commitment that helps Black artists grow and thrive.
Thank you, Chanel. That is that long-term commitment that you've mentioned before with the Arts and Business Council, but also we talked about NEFA, New England Foundation for the Arts, and IFE. That's a segue into you and their original support of your work. And you've been talking about racism and ancestral enslavement for a very long time now.
Yes, I want to harken back to some things like about these institutions. Thank you for acknowledging my work and for how long I've been doing it. To be one of, I don't know, I guess I'm the oldest person on this call. I remember like the Watts riots, of course. I remember the riots of the civil rights movement, and I remember both of these times, like look at the Watts Towers, like all this artwork came out because people then could see us after, like we hadn't been here before, like we hadn't been making art, and we have. There have been Black artists, scholars, the whole time. And you don't have to be a scholar. People, we've been making art forever. So my thing is, I'm seeing these things happen, and I'm thinking that why do they stop happening? Why do they have to keep repeating themselves? Why do we have to get mad, come out here swinging in order for you to see us, to see our work, to see our worth, to understand our value, and don't just hand me something, as Chanel was saying, don't just it feels like you're giving me something because you want to appease me, because you want me to be quiet, because you want me to stay in my lane. My lane is everywhere. Okay, this is my country. I pay taxes. My lane is wherever I want to drive. So I need the fuel, as Chanel was saying, in order to keep driving. We need funding. We need organizations to not treat us like, a ship in the night, or something that is here right now and won't be here later. Why I put it back in the arts organizations, like, what are y'all doing? Like, why aren't you paying attention? How come you don't really get it? And once you have these relationships, I will harken back, because Chanel was right on the pulse. I've had many missteps with individuals who wanted to help me with my work and organizations, because it's like once you partner with them, it's like they feel like they have ownership, and that is based in their racism and in their oppression, which they don't even understand. So a lot of times I've had frustrating situations where I've had to like wade through the water, if I must use some terms of my ancestors, like I had to wade through this water in order to even get to the other side, because I've had to deal with I've had to deal with other people's bullshit, basically, in order for me to get to where I need to go. Now I want to come into NIFA, because NIFA has been very, very different. Very, very. We were on our call, our pre-call. I've been applying for grants a long time here in Boston. The first grant I ever received, I was 57 years old. I graduated from museum school when I was like 30 years old, 29 years old. And I've been, trying to fight to get this work. It wasn't a fight at first. I was just applying, and then it became a fight. And then I realized the people who are looking at my grants cannot relate to what I'm talking about. Because when I call them and I tell them, what was it, the proposal? No, it wasn't the proposal. So I'm like, if it wasn't the proposal, then what was it? Oh, it's the subject matter, because I'm talking about slavery, but I'm not just talking about, that's the whole thing about my project. I'm not just talking about the things about slavery that were painful. Like everything about it was jacked, okay? And my ancestors had a deep love. They had to, or else I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. They tried to strip everything away, but they couldn't take that. And so with that heart, there is healing. And I feel like I'm able, with the help of NIFA, the Bar Foundation, the Boston Foundation, I'm able to use my work as a vehicle, not just as visual art, yes, but also as a vehicle for change and for healing. Because there needs to be an incredible amount of healing before people can want to do things with other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm gonna white organizations who want to do this work. Like, I understand that that's what you want to do, and there may not be some sexy times in that. Yeah. There may be times when the artist is like, a lot of times I'm like, I just want you to give me the money with no strings attached. Meaning, I'm not your best friend. Don't call me to come. Don't tote me around. Ask me to come over for dinner because you bought a piece of artwork for me and say that I'm your best friend now. Like, these are the kinds of things I've had to deal with. And they're very painful. Like, they're very painful. So, and those things come out of people's it comes out of their racism and oppression, like they don't even understand what they're doing. But then I have to deal with this and then try to make some artwork. Kind of stressful.
Yes.
Especially when you have deadlines and things. So I am grateful for NIFA, because I feel like it's whomever now are sitting in these positions to choose who they want to work with, and this and that, it's new blood. Like your organization, the people who are at NIFA, it's really nice to be around long enough to see things change. And I'm praying that with people like Anita and Chanel and Stephen Hamilton and everyone else who's driving this forth now, and many people, Jadi and everyone who's driving the arts right now in this town, are very, very, very talented people, very, very learned people. And most times people, like, I want to collaborate with people. I pull away if the vibe isn't right.
Yeah. Ife, thank you for doing this work for so long in our city, and for continuing to have hope, and continuing to hold us accountable. There's so much more there that I want to get into, but I do want to give Anita a chance to share your reflections of some of the organizations or systems that are working for you right now as you lift up the Roxbury cultural assets.
Definitely. So Roxbury Cultural District is fairly new. There was a lot of foundational work that was provided by many stakeholders and community artists over a long period of time. Over the last year, we've received extraordinary support also from the Boston Foundation, and really thinking about how do you uplift and support place leaders, right? So through the Place Leadership Network, which is a pilot program the first year, about 8 teams were put together over an 8 to 9 month period. And it included shared learning. We had some support from Harvard GSB, just to think about our unique goals and our communities and some of the systemic challenges that exist. And so we didn't run away from that. And that's another thing that, you know, I think is really important and key of not only a funder, but a partner in this work. And through the Boston Foundation, Philip Barash has been a champion and a leader for us in terms of advocating around kind of how we are framing our work, getting to the nuts and bolts of who it's impacting, right? Seeing the importance of the connectivity between people, resources, and space, and how we're bringing people into the spaces, right? And so thinking about how placekeeping is key and important and critical, not only to displaying art and artistic work and expression, how communities are coming together, showing our pain and our challenges, but also at a time like right now, how we are supporting small businesses, right? And so how all of that lends a hand together. And so we were really fortunate to get the support of the Boston Foundation in a really critical time.
Anita, can you, for those on the call who don't understand the term placekeeping, can you help unpack that for us and maybe give us an example of a space or a local business that is already doing that?
Definitely. I think one of our anchor and artistic and cultural anchors and champions has been Black Market, right? And so Black Market is a cultural space. It's inside a building, but very much extends itself to the outdoor, the public realm, right? And so when you're in and around Black Market, what it's doing is it's contributing to the neighborhood. It is lifting up the voices that are already there. It is supporting entrepreneurship and small businesses. Kai and Chris are staples and advocates in the community for what needs to happen, you know, and I think they live that not only through their work, but their life and their mission. And so I think that their work, as well as Haley House right across the street, the work that they've been doing for a number of years, right, bringing people out into that open space and bringing us together. It's a staple. It's an anchor. It's something that I think it creates an additional mechanism for social cohesion. And without it, we're just pieces moving around space.
Thank you. I love that. People moving around space. I wanted to bring it back to art practices, and you know, Nubian Square and Roxbury has such a strong, long history of supporting African culture. And so, Ife, if you could just talk a little bit more about how African culture is, maybe either performance or ritual, is baked into your work now, and if there's any new changes that you're making in your work because of anything that is going on. Loaded question.
Well, and I might have to ask you, could you replay the question? First of all, I want to say I love Black Market. I love Chris and Kai, and they are my community partners for my project.
Hey.
Which is one big ritual. But what I've come to understand about my work, from the origins, you know, I started out as a photographer. Everything that I do, everything that I create is ritual. Everything that I do is an ebo, which is a Yoruba word for sacrifice, or, you know, gift you give. Everything that I create is ebo. I'm starting to really understand that. No, I don't understand it. I know. And now I totally know and accept that. And it's these rituals. I mean, what is ritual? Ritual is all kinds of things. Having dinner every night, you know, saying hello to your mom in the morning. And a lot of my ancestors didn't get to do didn't get to do those things while they were in enslavement. So really, you know, people ask me all the time, what is my project about? It's about love. It's really about love. It's about love. It's about healing. It's about tradition. It's about culture. And it's also about not just the time of enslavement. My project is about what happened prior, you know, before we were brought here, because all of those rituals we brought with us, like the ring shout, how we spice our food, dance, you know, like my project, I just want to celebrate Black people. I just want to love us up so like candy. You know, I just want to elevate all the things about us that are wonderful, that have been suppressed, that people love about us, but they want to assimilate, you know. Sometimes it's like the ink isn't even dry on our stuff before somebody else is taking it, you know. It's so rich and so vibrant. And I just love Black people, okay? And I want to shine the brightest light on us that I can. And I want to do that through my work, whether it's through narratives, however the work can grow and change, whether it's through singing. I just feel so blessed by the ancestors to be able to do so many things and incorporate them all into my work. And I can't do it alone. And so here I am with the book that is now turned into a script, and I'm working with all these different people. I'm going to be working with Melissa Alexis as the choreographer. I'm going to be working with Akili Jamal Haynes as the musical director. Like, and I've known, Amazing. You know, because we're all artists here, like how Chanel has, you know, I know you have your cohort, you have your friend.
Yeah.
And I've never worked with them like this. Like I see people at parties, you know, and we talk. But now I'm going to, with these grants from Boston Foundation and NIFA, I'm going to be able to challenge myself to grow. Like I'm asking people to come, whenever I ask people to come in, I'm asking, come in and grow. You know, like come in with an open heart and an open space. Then I realize, oh, I have to do that.
Yes.
I can't ask people to do anything that I'm not doing.
You're getting vulnerable, and they're getting vulnerable too, right? In this big.
Yeah, I really feel like my work is a healing balm, and that's where I'm going with it. And sometimes, you know, help doesn't always feel like help. It doesn't always feel sexy. Like there's going to be conversations and things that aren't going to be easy. There's so much healing again that needs to happen. And the healing white people need to heal, Black people need to heal. Some of that healing we need to do together, and some of it we need to do separately. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it needs to happen. There's so much PTSD in my community. And I'm not just saying, when I say my community, I'm not saying African American. I'm talking African diaspora. Okay, there's so much. And this work that we do, that Chanel does, that I do, that Anita does, that you all do, is healing. Who doesn't know that art is healing? So
art is healing.
Where I'm coming from, that's what I'm doing.
I'd love to give Chanel the last few minutes before we jump over to some Q&A. Chanel, I see healing in your work, but I also see a lot of discovery and joy and I don't want to say silliness, but that seems to have changed in the last few years. So are there any projects that you want to talk about that are feeling really resonant with you right now that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think I think I draw a lot of parallels to Ife in terms of using my work as a vehicle to share more than just Black pain and trauma. Not only is the media obsessed with that, but there's definitely been a long legacy in the contemporary art space of holding up artists who are showing Black trauma and Black death and Black morbidity in new ways. So I want to disrupt that a little bit and like also say that Black people are indeed joyful. They also are loved. They like to share love. They should be loved. They are also beautiful. because we are also human. Like the full spectrum of humanity is not just our pain and our trauma. Like we are simultaneously experiencing joy and love as well. And I think for my own selfish reasons, I've leaned into putting more of the joy parts into my work because that's a nourishment to myself first. And kind of as an extension of that, I'm very clear that what we do as artists changes attitudes and disrupts people's norms in a lot of ways. So one project that I've been working on recently that I've been really excited about has been the Public Space Invitational with the city's Department of Urban Mechanics. Essentially through that program, I've been partnering with a community garden in Roxbury called El Jardín de la Amistad. And I've been able to meet the gardeners there. I interviewed them about like what is it about being a gardener and connecting to nature and being able to walk or do a short commute to a garden in your neighborhood that makes you feel good or that impacts your life in a positive way. So from those interviews I did with the gardeners, I then used that as fuel to design about 15 terracotta planters and birdhouses. And then in partnership with city natives, they were able to actually plant vegetables and herbs in those terracotta potters. And then we then distributed them yesterday at El Jardín to people in the neighborhood for free. So that, to me, those are the kinds of projects that I'm excited to be aligned with because it honors me as an artist because I was paid to do that work, first and foremost. And I was able to steer the process for the creation. All the Department of Urban Mechanics said was, here are the terracotta planters and birdhouses. Here's the partner, the neighborhood that we want you to work with. What can you make happen? And I think that I would like to see more organizations move in that direction of really like trusting the artist to know their neighborhood, trusting the artist to know their community, and trusting the artist to lead what the process for creating the work together should look like. Because they are the people who are, I live in Roxbury. I am a 10-minute walk from El Jardín. You know, so that has been really beautiful because it allowed me to know more about the gardeners there. I can be honest in saying I'd pass by that garden all the time, but I never walked in. So this opportunity allowed me to tap into my community in a new way. And again, it's making a lasting impact. So all the people who came to pick up their potters at El Jardín yesterday now know that it's a place that they can go. Right. El Jardín is looking for new gardeners. So there's open plots there. And now people have a terracotta planter with my designs on it and herbs that they're putting in their food. You know, like that is the type of poetic, symbolic, and tangible relationship that's being
funded.
Made through all these connections. Yes, that is funded.
Yes. and trustworthy. And I wanted to get back to Anita to talk about the millions of dollars going in with community benefits, improvement benefits, but I see Mary Liz is on to start questions. If we don't have any questions yet, we don't. Okay, so can we just jump over to that loaded question, Anita? So there are millions and millions of dollars, right? That will be, okay, not millions.
Well, yeah, it's millions, but millions of dollars that's being invested for development, right? And so Roxbury Cultural District, one of the things we were doing through the Place Leadership Network was thinking about how we can have true collaborative community benefits agreements and what that looks like in terms of giving back to the community. Maybe that looks like arts, cultural spaces. Maybe that looks like additional investment. But through our 8 to 9 months of work, we were also thinking more about TIFs, tax increment financing, district increment financing, business investment districts, and ways that the community, you know, the cultural, our artistic anchors in our community, our stakeholders, our local artists, our neighbors could work together to advocate around some really sustainable funding that then can go to artists, artistic work, cultural events, you know, perhaps Black market funding something that they can do on a large scale. Also, just thinking, you know, a few months ago, if if we had that pocket of funds, perhaps we could have channeled it in a different way for small businesses, artists, and creatives right now, right? During COVID, when everyone's struggling. And also thinking creatively outside the box about how we're reclaiming space and how we're coming together to heal around some of the trauma that's happening. And so really, you know, the call to action would be for us to really work together to sit down and have a community conversation about whether something like that is possible for the district and how it can support specifically artists, creatives, and small businesses in the area.
So there will be opportunities soon for people to have that conversation, it sounds like.
We would like to push for that, at least to sit down and have a dialogue about what that could look like, how we could channel resources to various arts and cultural organizations and entities within the district. We think it's timely.
It is. So we have so many other things to cover. We kind of touched on healing. We haven't touched on housing, artist space, lots of other things to talk about. But I do want to open it up now to our attendees to join in. And I've been trying to keep up with the chat, but just can't, because I just wanted to listen to what you guys had to say. So Mary Liz, can you help us out if there's any good chat that we should be bringing into this conversation now?
Sure. So folks can submit your questions through the Q&A feature, and that'll let me know that you're ready to ask your question live, and I'll turn your mic on. So please feel free to submit questions through Q&A. While we wait for that, there was a good question that Philip Barish brought up earlier in the chat that I'd like to start with. And Anita, I'm gonna throw this one to you first, but I think Ife and Chanel, you'll both have thoughts on this as well. But Philip mentioned that art is often tied in the civic context to tourism and economic development, and that is kind of a troublesome paradigm to be just tying people's art and what the public expects of art to those two factors. And so what other ways can we think about how we value culture and its value to our city, other than for tourism and economic development, in the idea that, it's to draw new people into a neighborhood, right? So economic development, how does it support local businesses, for instance, or what are some ways that you're thinking about that in the cultural district and as artists?
So in terms of the way that I look at that, art and culture is also a way to bring people together in space, right? It also, whether it's individual or community, you also are creating kind of a bridge with a space. So for instance, there's this piece that I walk by every day, and for me it's like a checkpoint, right? And it warms me, it makes me feel connected to home. And so arts and culture often play those types of positions as well, as bringing community together and serving as an anchor.
Yeah. Art as part of home. I like that a lot. Making people feel at home. How about you, Ife or Chanel? Do you have thoughts on that? How to disentangle art or public art from pushes for tourism and other kinds of economic development?
I mean, I don't have very much. I just think, of course, people have to think about tourists, I get, but I just feel like, think about the people who are your constituents, think about the people. I just think that before you bring other people in, what are you doing with the people who are already here? How are you engaging them? How are you inviting them? Because what you're doing with the tourism is inviting. So if you don't feel invited to a space, if you don't feel like you can go to South Boston, if you don't feel like you could go to the North End, if you don't feel invited, why are you inviting other people? Because then you're just leaving out the people who pay the taxes. You're leaving out the people your Commonwealth. So that makes me feel ignored. That makes me feel like you don't care about me. Like you just care about, tourism is sort of like temporary gentrification. You know, they come in, they spend a lot of money, they suck up everything, and then they're gone. Poof, they ghost, right? So yeah, I would just say, how can you bridge the gap between tourism and the people who are already here? Is anyone even thinking about that? That's just that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think it also ties to, again, that relationship and being clear about your intentions when seeking out that relationship. Is it really about a long-term investment in a place? Because if so, tourism would not be a priority in how you're moving to support a neighborhood. It'd be a byproduct. It's like, oh, that's another that's another byproduct of doing great work that attracts people, doing great work that makes people who live in the neighborhood feel so good that folks outside the neighborhood now want to come and take a look too. So I think it does go back to that, again, that prioritization of the long-term investment and the long-term relationship, as Ife said, to the people that are already there.
Sure, because when the tourism money comes in, what neighborhoods do those dollars go to?
I mean, there's nothing to say after that. I mean, that is the question, like where is that money going and how is it supporting the people who live in Boston and in these other places? So we had a great question from Nina LaNegra, who is a friend of ours. Yay! And she says, hi, Ife. And I asked if she wants to get on live and ask this question, but she said I could ask it. So I'm going to go ahead. Anita, this question I think is definitely for you. And Nina's wondering, what steps is the cultural district taking to bring people together right now in this time of distancing? And what does that look like for you all? How are you planning for uncertainty? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So unfortunately, like all of us, we've had a lot of programming and efforts that have been disrupted. We had a really great fireside chat that was planned with Delita Martin and Stephen Hamilton. That was in partnership with the MFA. That was scheduled to happen in May. We also had a placekeeping effort that we were doing in partnership with Neighborways in Nubian Square. That was going to happen periodically throughout the summer. That was also taken off course. And we had planned quarterly mixers to bring people together for information sharing. And so we're really thinking about how we're moving forward and being very intentional about that. And as a new nonprofit, funding continues to be a challenge. And so, Nina, we would love to have you as a part of thinking through how we're making those next steps. Perhaps pushing some of those efforts that we tried to do in May that didn't work out, or the placekeeping effort with Neighborways and the mixers, but really thinking strategically on how we're pushing that forward. And we would love to have you at the table.
And Anita, I think it's worth pointing out that you're part-time, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're not fully funded yet. And if people on this call do have creative ideas for gathering in COVID, can they reach out to you?
Definitely.
Great. One of the projects that we continue to support is the Roxbury Sunflower Project by Aqua Homes, dropping in there. It's going into its 3rd year, and she successfully did a seed giveaway in early June. So there are ways to be together, but protected and safe.
Excellent. Sorry, I have a couple of questions coming in chat that I'm just following up with folks to see if they would like to ask them live. But one of the things we haven't talked about that's in our outline is housing and how we're keeping it possible for the people who live in Roxbury to stay in Roxbury, to keep Black and Brown artists in spaces that are livable and affordable to them. And I'm going to open this question to whoever wants to take it first, because I think you all have thoughts on this. But I would love. Great, thanks, Ife.
Ife's got it.
Only because thank you. I'm sorry that I cut you off.
No, go for it.
Because after our preliminary conversation, I thought about this. Of course, I need, I would love to see some senior artist housing. I don't know if anybody's talking about that. I'm a senior and I need different housing. And I need to feel safe and I need to feel secure. And then I was thinking about different things, like how would it look? And I don't know, and I was thinking, I would love senior artist housing, senior artists of color housing. But then I don't know if that's that sounds discriminatory. That's not what I want. But then I was thinking, I would love to live in a building with intergenerational artists of color. I just think that would be wonderful because I could just learn. I feel different things. I feel like I could learn a lot. It would keep my brain, like we could learn from each other. And I feel like if I needed somebody to help me do something, I could knock on somebody's door and like, I can't lift this because, I'm just not that young anymore. So I was thinking about that. And, again, what's affordable? We talked about this too. It's like a lot of these places that are affordable, it's like, affordable for who? An artist with a trust fund? Like, cause I can't afford that. And my housing situation right now, it's okay, but it's pretty insecure. Like if anything happened at any time, where would Ife go? I have friends who have had to go as far as Orange, Massachusetts. And I'm like, where is that? And they're like way out there somewhere and they can't, they live in JP and they can no longer afford to live here. So yeah, let's break some ground on that senior artist housing. That would just really make me happy.
I support that.
I do too. I'm wondering, if there are any specific policy initiatives any of you know about housing in Roxbury that people can look into and support. And if you don't, that's fine. We can do some of that research and see if there are any. Or other local grassroots organizations who are working specifically on housing that people can get involved with. All right, that's something for us to research. Katie, I'm gonna throw that one over to you to see if you can find anything before we're done. But if not, we'll look for some links for the recording on this post. So we have a couple questions from folks. The first one I'm gonna go to is Sarah. This is a great question. I'm gonna throw this one to Anita first, but I think, yeah, there are good answers to this. So Sarah, let me just turn your microphone on. Yeah, you should be good to answer your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Hi. I don't know if my video is going or not, but anyway, I'm Sarah Long Holland, and I am with Celebrity Series of Boston. And before that, I was with NIFA, and I was there when the Creative City program was getting started. And I'm so thrilled that it's doing what it's doing. So a shout out to all of my NIFA colleagues for that. But my question is this. What are some of the worst and best things that larger cultural institutions in this city do when trying to partner with Roxbury artists and organizations? And you've talked about the internal work that organizations need to do that I think many organizations are now taking more seriously and taking more actionable steps towards dismantling racism within our own organizations. But I think the question that I want to ask is, what should we be doing now to do a better job of this? What are we not seeing?
So I'm not sure if I should be the one answering this question. I think this really goes back to what Ife and Chanel were both saying. And Chanel, maybe you could add more to this, but.
Yeah, I can actually take this.
Yeah.
So in addition to being an artist, my background has kind of been in a lot. I've had my many irons in the fire in terms of what I do as someone who has a career in the arts. So I've done nonprofit work at different levels. I've worked with museums at different levels. I've also been a part of like different committees that give out funds through the Boston Foundation in different ways as well. So the one through line that I see in all of those places where change can really happen, I think it has to start with the people who are funding. You as a funder are setting the tone for the culture of the organization who is trying to cater to you and the ways in which they are running their organization to get to the photos, the statistics, and the writing that you claim is important to keep the paycheck that you're sending out to that organization. So I would say, looking at it big picture, I think people who are interested in arts philanthropy and people who want to fund the arts and cultural districts and artists really need to sit with themselves and get to a place where they go, I am not the expert in what these communities, these artists, and these organizations need. I am not the person in the field doing the direct service. And I am not the person who has a real functioning understanding of what it takes to achieve the goals that I am envisioning as the important thing that is attached to the dollars that I'm submitting to these organizations. So I would say that is the thing that will make the most drastic change, because as someone who has been an artist, as someone who has been someone doing direct service, as someone who's been a teacher, as someone who's worked in arts nonprofits at different levels, and as someone who sat on review committees for funds to give out funds, everything that happens is centered around what the funder is saying and is important, and what the funder is saying that they want to see to prove that their money is being utilized in a great way. And I think the real thing that we need to do to see shifts in our sector, in our field, is to really have funders say, I have this money, I believe that this organization can do what needs to be done with it, and I'm gonna stand back. I'm not gonna force you to hit these crazy statistics. I'm not gonna force you to write answers to all these questions that actually don't have relevance to the work that's happening or the needs the community has. Like it's like everyone is in the cycle of trying to appease a funder, and the funder is the most disconnected entity from the folks that they claim they want to help. And they're not interested in hearing or being challenged on the fact that what they as a funder think is helpful to the community actually isn't helpful. It's just causing more busy work and stress and strife for everyone who wants to do great things and help people. So I would say that is the first place to look. If you're the leader of an arts organization, or you are someone who's soliciting funders and you actually have the opportunity to directly talk to that funder or all of the wonderful people in place that surround that funder, I would say have meetings with them and be honest about, these are the things that you're asking me to do for this money, and these are the ways that that expectation doesn't make sense. Start with that, because everyone is in the hamster wheel of trying to appease a funder, and they again tend to be the most disconnected people from the folks they claim they want to help.
I agree. And all of that has to do, most times the people who are running these organizations are white. It has to do with their structural racism. Like, all of this stuff is about that. The reason you can't hear other people, the reason you can't understand other people, the reason you can't give somebody some money and let them do their work because you don't know how to trust this person. All of that stuff is built into who you are. You bring yourself to your job. So if that's how you're running your job, of course, that's how it's going to trickle down. So everything Chanel said is, for me, you need to work on you need to keep working. You need to keep working on your structural racism and your oppression, because it's everything. The way you say it, the way you write up your mission statement, everything harkens back to racism, oppression, and the enslavement of Black people through the world, everything. And see this, when people start really get that and understand how all these tentacles, work and how they wiggle around, and it's not rocket science. It's just like people don't want to deal with this reality. It is that clear. It is that simple. It is not rocket science. So we need to start unlearning things. We need to start dismantling things. We need to start accepting that many people's, the way they think about things is based on this ideal of how this country was structured, how it's still being run, and why things are happening and unfolding the way they are right now, because there's never been any atonement or appeasement or apology or any working out of what happened to Black people. None of this stuff is going to work until we are healed. And that's the bottom line. Until we have worked all of this stuff out. And check it, this is the thing that's made me sad the other day. It took generations for these systems to be put in place. It's not going to take 5 years for them to be dismantled, or 10 years. It's going to take generations. So that means the work is never over. I don't care what color you are, because we all have a stake in this, right? Like I said, Black people need to heal white people. It all comes down to that. So we just need to keep doing our work, keep taking risks, which is hard for me at this time, because I feel like my heart has been broken so many times by well-meaning white folks and well-meaning Black folks. Okay? As again, we get back to that healing. Like, I've been hurt by Black artists in this town. I have. Like, let me just get really real. Okay? To the point where there's still some people I don't talk to. Because why? I haven't healed from that. We haven't healed from that. Or maybe people don't feel like there needs to be a healing, but I don't like that. I don't like showing up in a place and feeling this tension from something that happened a long time ago, when we just need to talk about it or apologize about it or something. So the conversations need to happen, and we need to be transparent, and we need to be willing to take risks.
Thank you. I'm gonna lift up a question from Ona Wang, who asked me to lift this question up for her, but also I don't think this is a question I don't have an answer to, and I'm not sure if anybody knows off the top of their head, but it's an important thing just to ask out loud for people to think about. And I'm not sure that there are any examples of this in Boston that I know of. If any of you do, please answer. How many white arts administrators or leaders have stepped down or aside to make space for Black leaders?
I haven't heard of any, but if there are, I would love to know. That's a very important question. Wow.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that question, on top of loving to know who they're swapping into a new position, I'd like to know what they're doing structurally to support that person in that new role, as opposed to it just being a new face at a new person in the seat. Like, what systems are in place to support that person so that they can actually execute and do the work that you hope to see them accomplish?
I heard a rumor of one person that might be stepping down, and I don't even know the institution. So there may at least be one, and I think there need to be many more. To bring in Stephen Hamilton's voice, who I think everyone here mentioned in some way or another. I don't think he's on the call. He's not on the call. He and I were talking about making space, making our board, Now and There's board, a safe space to bring in a person of color, and especially a Black artist today. And Chanel, that gets to your point of, we can't just swap. Whole cultures and systems need to be reinvented, made safe. We need to have these conversations. We need to heal. And I think it is on white leaders, and I'll put myself in that position, to do the work while you continue to do yours and heal and take care of each other. I had one sort of follow-up question to the conversation of, while we're all waiting for these sort of systems to put together, and waiting for organizations like mine to do the work, are there currently examples, Black Market being one of them, of Black owned or Black led or Black supported businesses or institutions that are starting to form right now, that you want to lift up? And if not,
well, because
make some.
Because we can only think, because I'll keep the focus, because I can only think of one, then that means there's so much work to be done. Yeah. Meaning also that I need to do research, because I know that folks are out there. I know. So I have homework to do, and I appreciate that question.
Yeah, same. Because immediately I was like, Black Market. But then I'm like, there should be more. And similar to Ife, I was like, wow, I need to do some more work learning to find out, like, who else is out there.
Lisa Simmons brings up Frugal
Somebody
Bookstore.
said Frugal Bookstore.
Yeah.
Frugal
yeah.
Bookstore. Yes.
Yeah. And the guilds.
Yes.
They're coming in. All right. Okay. There are.
And someone said, okay, Dorchester Arts got kicked out. Okay, so there was that.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. Well, let's keep making space for more and supporting them. Mary Liz, are there other questions? I think actually there's a few more.
We're at time, and a couple of the questions that came in are things that are sort of logistical. The only other question I have here is from Cecily Miller. Is the search for a new ED of Mass Cultural Council still open? I believe that it is.
Anita's leaving, yes.
And she says that would be a great place to put some attention and advocacy, which is true. We also had a question about how we can be advocating with our boards for different kinds of hiring standards. And I don't think that's the right question for this particular panel, but it's something that we can take in at Now and There and be in touch, and a great place for action with places like the Arts and Business Council, NEFA, Third Sector New England is another great one. So email the leaders there, ask them for help and advice on that. Those are great places to advocate. But we're at time. It is 1:32. And so we don't want to hold people longer than we ask them to commit. So lots of questions, lots of great conversation. I'll let you wrap it up here, Kate. And those of you who we didn't get to, we have a transcript of the chat. And if we can be in touch with you afterwards, we will.
Yes. Usually I have words to wrap these conversations up. Today I have a lot of feelings. And I just, the feeling that I have is great gratitude for the three of you, Chanel, Anita, and Ife, for showing up for us today, for giving us what's in your heart and what's on your mind. And I just thank you for that, and want to encourage you in your journey. And that is the summary. Usually there's a quick go, vote for so-and-so, or, but this is hard work. And I just,
it is hard
thank
work.
You.
And
thank you for helping us.
Heart open for you to, I'm glad that you can feel it, because that's,
that's
what we want, right? That's what we want.
That is what we want, and we need to keep doing this and more. And in closing, I want to thank our funders, because, and two of whom you guys mentioned over and over again. So Now and There is also supported by the Boston Foundation and New England Foundation for the Arts. They've given us some generous unrestricted funding in these times, which goes directly to you guys to support stipends for your time here today. Also helps us create these videos with transcriptions, lives online, supports all the infrastructure behind. So thank you to them. And also thanks to all of you for joining us today, for having the bravery to add your comments and questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we will continue. Next week, we're going to come back at the same time, same place on Thursday, July 9th, as we ask the question, what does Grove Hall need right now? And we'll have special guests, Jonetta Tinker and Larry Pierce, to talk about the neighborhood of Grove Hall. Yes, we're moving along. So join us back here next week, 12:30. We will drop registration in the link. If you don't get to it right now, we'll also email you, and hope to see all of you here next week. And thank you again to Ife, Chanel, and Anita for being with us.
Shout out to Amar. Shout out to Amar. Power to the people. Hold it down. Y'all are worthy.
Thank you.
Everyone.